Welcome back to Rise and Shine Astrology. Today we'll look at the Jupiter-Saturn cycle from start to finish and see how it played out in relation to the different presidents in office during this cycle. You'll discover that the main events of those 20 years are all connected, one way or the other, to the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn beginning in 2000. It's important to realize that the Jupiter-Saturn cycle was not the only outer planetary cycle affecting events, but it is by far the most important one. Now let's take a look at the chart for the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in May 2000. Remember, as I explained in a previous video, this chart forms a 20-year map. First thing we notice is that Jupiter and Saturn are in Taurus. So, conservative fixed ideologies begin the new era. The conjunction is also conjunct the midheaven, meaning it's highly consequential, involving the presidency and America's status. The conjunction with the midheaven is in the 9th house of foreign involvement, affairs abroad, religion, international trade, and immigration issues. Note the conjunction is also square Uranus, so the possibility of unexpected or sudden events affecting the nation, or the possibility of war overseas, is high. The square to Uranus in the 6th of public health can mean a sudden outbreak of disease, strikes, and large demonstrations against all sorts of events that would occur. Let's take a look at the 10th house in mutable Gemini, leading us to think that many changes are going to be necessary. The fact that the 10th house of government is intercepted leads us to believe that what they plan and what happens will be interrupted or changed, or maybe not what it seems. The Sun in Jupiter's term tells us that the first president elected in this cycle is aligned with the big ideas and ideals of the Great Conjunction. Moon in the 8th in Aries in Jupiter's term, sextile Venus in 10th, meaning more than one and also large tax cuts. But Venus is combust, which is unfortunate for banks, the economy, finances, and property. Adding to the likely volatility is the fact that Venus is in Mercury's term, because Mercury always brings about change. Mars in the 10th in Gemini suggests possible wars, conflicts, armed forces on the move in more than one location. Fortuna in 10th, changing fortunes of the nation. In Saturn's term, instability and loss. Mercury, White House communication issues, transportation issues. In Saturn's term, unfortunate for transportation, for vehicles. As we shall see a bit later in the video, some of the key concepts laid out in the Great Conjunction chart for Washington became important events in this cycle. Here we have a diagram of the whole cycle, beginning with President Bush after the Great Conjunction in 2000. His administration is in the initiating part of the cycle. He got re-elected and then had to face the first outgoing square and its consequences. The trines in 2007 and 8 ushered in the Obama era. The trine part of the cycle is a time when tensions begin to ease and people start feeling optimistic again. By 2010-2011, the two planets are opposing each other and tough decisions have to be made about whatever was begun in 2000. Obama's term also encompassed the incoming trine, when things begin to be resolved and new solutions are found. By August 2015 and again in March 2016, the incoming square was approaching. By then, people want to change. They become dissatisfied with the status quo, and new problems have to be confronted. It's as if the people are feeling that the cycle has almost run its course, as if time is running out to enact what the conjunction promised. Just after the incoming square, the last part of the cycle, President Trump was elected in what is called the dying phase of the Great Conjunction. You'll see how each president in this cycle had to face new challenges, dictated largely by the critical aspects between Jupiter and Saturn in that 20-year time frame. The conjunction in Taurus means conservative ideologies began the new era. It also affects banks, the economy, property. The ascendant for Washington, D.C. at 28 Leo, a fixed sign with its ruler the Sun in 10th, indicates a need to make your mark on the world, to feel important. As indicated by the Great Conjunction, Bush's term began with large tax cuts, followed by the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center, which led to the war in Afghanistan. 2 years later, the lure of the Great Conjunction and the 9th of foreign involvement led to the war in Iraq. Huge demonstrations against the war broke out in many major cities all over the world. The first outgoing square after the conjunction occurs in December 2005. This is the time when what was begun at the conjunction shows up as the first big crisis. The first outgoing square between Jupiter and Saturn in 2005 was the prelude to what became the global financial crisis. The fixed T-square, formed by Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, shows a situation forming that will literally be hard to fix. This occurred in the two houses related to money, the economy, and big business. Square Saturn means many difficulties for the government and Congress. Sun-Jupiter conjunction in Sagittarius at the bottom of the chart means something deeply hidden or wrong that comes to light and will have huge global effects. It forms a mutable grand square with all the angles, showing a situation that unfolds fairly quickly and will keep changing once it becomes apparent. These are, of course, not all the signifiers, but this chart simply shows the start of the square, the first big crisis after the conjunction. It was after this square that the US housing bubble burst and an international banking crisis emerged. The Great Recession began in 2007 and lasted till 2009, with millions of people having to declare bankruptcy and losing their homes and businesses. The outgoing square to the outgoing trine phase of the Bush term. During this phase, a number of deep crises unfolded. And even though he began building the border wall, he also had to manage the financial crisis. That was when the third largest tax cut in history was enacted into law, following huge job losses. He also decided to bail out failing banks to the tune of $700 billion, as well as General Motors and Chrysler. All of these things were signified as high possibilities in the Great Conjunction chart. So this is the chart for the last of the triple trines between Jupiter and Saturn in 2007 and again in 2008. Jupiter in debility in Capricorn in the second house, trines Saturn in Virgo in the 10th, showing us that he would start his term in office dealing with the fallout from the global economic crisis, which started just after the square in 2005 during Bush's term in office. The stellium of Moon, Saturn, and Fortuna shows a level of optimism by the people, who believe that things can get better with change, with this president. Mars conjunct the ascendant in Sagittarius in Jupiter's term also speaks about the popularity of a great need for change. He came into office on the slogan, "Yes, we can." Let's look at what Obama had to do. The global economic crisis wasn't over yet. He signed an economic stimulus bill in 2009 and continued extending the border wall with Mexico. Just before the opposition between Jupiter and Saturn in 2010, he signed the new healthcare reform bill, which became known as Obamacare, despite the objection and deep opposition of the Republicans. Soon after the opposition, it fell to Obama to finish things that Bush began, such as the killing of Osama bin Laden. From the opposition to the incoming Trine is when Obama also had to end other things from the Bush term, such as the formal end of the war in Iraq and ending the combat mission part in Afghanistan. And back to the warmongering of the Great Conjunction in the 9th House of Foreign Affairs. Airstrikes against ISIS in Syria followed. In 2013, America sent aid and teams to help with the Ebola epidemic in West Africa, as signified by the Great Conjunction square with Uranus in the 6th of Public Health. So you can see that most presidents inherit unfinished business from the last administration. The Jupiter-Saturn opposition chart, you can see from the opposition between the two, where both are in Saturn's term, that Obama was tasked with ending many serious matters, those affecting the people, the 1st house, and those affecting wars, the 7th house. Although the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction are in the last degrees of Pisces, where matters end, this conjunction is fortunate for getting legislation done, since Jupiter is in its dignity in Pisces and also rules the 10th of the presidency, the government. We see that Mars in Leo in the 6th house of public health had a lot to do with an energetic push to pass the healthcare bill. Mars conjunct the descendant is also conjunct the ascendant of the Great Conjunction, the setting point of previous matters, as it were. So there were 3 incoming squares between 2015 and 2016. By then, the Great Conjunction cycle is almost spent, played out, and the people want to change, or have become dissatisfied with the status quo, and new problems have to be confronted. This is also reflected in the chart of the last incoming square in mutable signs, people wanting change. This last one occurred during the Trump presidential campaign cycle, and 8 months later he became president. "Make America Great Again" was his campaign slogan, and with big Jupiter trine Mercury of communication, it's easy to see why the slogan was so popular at the time. So what happened in the last part of the cycle? Trump broke off international treaties like the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Paris Climate Agreement. He also pulled out of the World Health Organization, amongst other things. He appointed 3 conservative Supreme Court justices and followed through on his campaign slogans to have tougher immigration policies, as well as building more border wall with Mexico. In 2017, he granted a $1.5 trillion tax cut, which benefited mainly the wealthiest individuals. In the last year in office, alarm bells began to ring about a new and deadly virus that had been discovered in China in late 2019. This became known as the COVID-19 virus, which developed into a worldwide pandemic. Trump later called on the international scientific community to develop vaccines for the virus at what he called warp speed. So to recap this 20-year cycle that began at 22 degrees Taurus, conservatives began and ended this cycle with very similar themes as shown in the Great Conjunction chart of 2000. 3 presidents took the helm in this time frame. We know the socio-economic history of this period, which included wars, huge tax cuts, a housing crash, banks failing, car makers having to be bailed out by the government, and sudden unexpected events such as attacks on the World Trade Center. The cycle ended with the worldwide COVID pandemic and its ramifications. The chart for the 2000 Great Conjunction laid out the basic roadmap. The next Great Conjunction began at the time of the winter solstice in December 2020, right at the end of Trump's term. I'll be doing a video of the next roadmap heralded by the Great Conjunction we're currently in. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks.